Hello, welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler. And yet again, I am speaking about NATO and Ukraine because obviously something's going on and it's not good. As Ukraine continues to lose the war, we can consider the country a trash fire, to say the least. We've had in recent weeks the Ukrainian government say, hey, college students, the last hope of Ukraine, you can flee. We've seen increased ramp up of terroristic attacks. Yes, attacks on another country, another sovereign's infrastructure is terrorism. The attacks continue to go on to those pipelines that run through Ukraine to Hungary, the ones that were benefiting Ukraine until this all started because they were getting a nice, heavy paycheck for being a transit state. We've had what appeared to be an increase in false flags. A whole bunch of them happened that looked like, oh, hey, look, we're going to say the Russians did it. Like, the other day, there was some amount of drones flying around. I believe it was Dutch airports. It was two of them. Cannot remember the names, but it looked, and it was going on for several hours. Either it was a prank or it was meant to be, hey, look, the Russians are doing this again, but because everybody started calling it out as weird and, look, it's another false flag, it didn't go anywhere. Like, it's the same thing with the drone incursions. Like, when you have the Polish people saying, what the hell are you doing with these false flags against the Russians? Like, when Poles are on the side of the Russians for any reason, you know you've done fucked up. And yet, as I predicted, it continued to get worse since the last video I did on this. There was massive ramp up. It's saying, yes, Russian jets are skirting here, here, and here, and oh, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Oh, we just have this country's word to go on, like the Estonians, because they've been so trustworthy up until now. So, what looks like it's what's happening is that the European members of NATO that are super into Project Ukraine have massive deficits and cannot balance their budget to save, their lives, or rebalance the budget, not to be out of a budgetary deficit, but to be into a place where they can reallocate the proper amount of funds to defense spending that they've largely gone away with because Big Daddy USA has been their defense plan for 80 years now. Really, you could say over 100 when, the Americans supplied a whole shit ton of stuff for World War One, but definitely since World War Two. So it looks like with what's happening in the Trump administration and the American public at larger, Brent Johnson was actually speaking of something similar to this uh, on his last Sunday show. So if you want to go check that out, it was about the realignment to basically a national first strategic look at everything, especially through the hegemonic sovereign of the United States, where it looks like, again, Trump and his team and the American people are realigning what they expect the military to do from going to be, Team America, World Police, into we will deal with our hemisphere and anywhere that benefits us. If it benefits us, sure, we'll send some stuff. But if it doesn't, we're out. So, does Ukraine benefit America? Not really. we're out. Does, going into does confronting China over Taiwan benefit America? Yes, because TSMC has most of its factories in Taiwan, and those chips are extremely important. TSMC, again, in my opinion, is one of, if not the most important companies on earth to extreme strategic importance. Like, it is the most strategically important company on earth because of the product they make. Like, it doesn't come close in my mind. Like, the amount of problems the West would get into if, say, China took over TSMC and the microcode of, Intel, AMD, ARM, NVIDIA, and a whole host of other advanced chip manufacturers that, are of lesser size, was compromised, you could have serious, serious implications for not only national security, but financial security, because everything is run on those chips. And if the microcode is compromised, you're effed. So again, TSMC, the most important and most important company in the world at this time, because it's located in a strategically undefensible island for the West, and yet it's still there. But anyways, what's going on in Ukraine very much looks like the EU crazies are attempting to get Daddy Trump to look at Europe and be like, please invest in us, please don't pull out. We need you oh so much. Look at these nasty Russians. They're so evil. They're, checks note, landing drones on, what was it again? It was a chicken coop. It landed on a chicken coop. Perfectly intact chicken coop, by the way. Those dastardly Russians after the chickens. Or, what is it, a MiG? Is it are they at the 35, or is it there's this, what is it, the 27 that they've got? Whatever jets, fighter planes, and so forth the Russians have patrolling, apparently breaking international or breaking into sovereign airspace. Press X to doubt. But it looks like this is an increasing campaign as Trump's looking elsewhere and is signaling, we're gonna slowly back away from Ukraine. And that's good, but he's playing politics when he should just be saying, fuck you, we're out. Like, straight up. So if you look at the context of what he's been doing with the secondary oil sanctions, he's actually playing a pretty good game there. But again, I don't think he should be playing a game. He should just be backing the hell away from the Russians, remove the sanctions, and just go about business. Try to increase political ties with the Russians, economic ties with the Russians, because, like, Russia isn't the world's enemy. China, yeah, you can make that, but really China's going to collapse in on itself, say, within 50 years, if not earlier. You already have signs of that happening now. But what Trump's doing in the context of secondary oil sanctions is, yeah, sure, he's changed his tune a little bit. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll totally go on board with secondary sanctions on, say, India, if the Europeans get on board and sanction the shit out of India too. Until then, no. Now, what's that doing is asking the EU to really shoot themselves in the foot. Because where do you think the Indians are selling the Russian oil and gas they are getting at a reasonable price, and then to sell it at market rate? Who do you think they're selling it to? They're not selling it to the Chinese. The Chinese are buying directly from the Iranians and the Russians. Why would they buy Indian oil? They're not. They're selling it to the EU. And they're making a killing doing it, too. Do you think the EU is going to go through with that? Why do you think Trump changes his tune suddenly on the Indian sanctions and puts in this condition that would destroy Europe economically? And all of a sudden, you get all these incidents of Russia not being extremely careful to not provoke NATO. Like, this war has been going on, again, for like 30 years in reality. All right? But we can just say it's been going on for, 11 years now. All right? When have the Russians directly confronted NATO and it's been proven true? Like, yes, they've confronted NATO forces in Ukraine. Yes, you've had military there for a decade plus now. And have they died there? Yes, Russians have killed, American soldiers, Canadian soldiers, and a whole bunch of other NATO soldiers that have, largely gone unnoticed. But mostly, since this war's really picked up, it's been mercenaries. So they don't count as starting Article 5. It's not officially sanctioned, even though it technically is. And all of a sudden, the Russians are being sloppy enough to send a couple of drones into Poland, and then a couple more into Romania, and then breach a few, like Estonia's airspace, and then do something in the Netherlands. Like, come on. If you're going to do something, at least make it believable at this point. Like, the Russians have been fighting this war extremely carefully to limit their casualties and to limit the risk of escalation with NATO. But all of a sudden, that goes out the window. Like, the Russians didn't even check, say, Polish airspace, or, like, float a submarine or, like, a little fleet into German waters, or, send aircraft into German airspace or anything, when the Germans themselves leaked, hey, we were considering giving the Ukrainians a suitcase radiological device. That didn't even happen. So all of a sudden, we're saying the Russians, who have been slowly grinding Ukraine down, all right, are now losing and are becoming desperate and are doing stupid things instead of, I don't know, using their stockpile of ICBMs and wiping out Ukrainian energy sector. And by the energy sector, I mean, like, transformers, substations, all that good stuff that they can just knock out, because they've completely mapped it at this point. Most of it's all old Soviet stuff anyways, so they know where it is. So, like, but I would say, up until this war is finalized, you will continue to see NATO do stupid shit like this and blame the Russians in an attempt to sucker the United States to stay in Europe and keep, like, if you look at the United States focus as, say, the Eye of Sauron, Europe is doing the equivalent of being the army of Gondor that challenged at the Black Gates to distract the Americans. Well, yeah, to distract the Americans with the Russians, so that, like, the globalists can backdoor America and destroy it. Like, that's basically what's going on. So far, Trump's doing a fine job. Like, you've got, Tulsi and Hegseth halting and slowing down arms shipments to Ukraine. Again, I'm still on the opinion that Trump should just say, nah, bro, we're out. We're done. This isn't benefiting America anymore. Sure, we'll still sell NATO weapons because we'll make money. But, like, everything else, we're out. This war is done. It's over. And the Russians would win. I mean, the Russians are going to win anyways. I don't understand why we are continuing the farce that Ukraine has a chance of winning. Even Trump is continuing with that farce. In that Truth Social post the other day, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure that like the Ukrainians can take back what land they've lost." Sure, why not? Whatever. Like, Trump's a really good PR person. That entire Truth post was like, yeah, America's kind of done with Ukraine. We'll just, like, we'll still send weapons and stuff, but like, we're really done. We're just done. You know? So it's a good signal, but again, as the EU technocrats and globalists realize that they're not going to be able to strip mine Russia, the amount of crazy that they will be willing to do will increase. So I suspect, like, the whole, hey, the Germans are preparing possibly to head over a radiological device or help the Ukrainians build one that fits in a suitcase. I suspect that something like that comes up again. And I do think it'll leak. Because there's just enough people in positions of power in Europe to be like, this is insane. We're leaking this. We cannot allow that. Like, there's just the bare minimum amount of people who have not completely lost it in, European governments that will leak that shit, as has been shown multiple times at this point. I think the United States, or what Trump's going to do, is probably shift. Well, there's neocon forces attempting to shift forces to Taiwan and back to Israel at the same time. But Trump seems to really, really want to go shift back, especially now after what happened with Charlie Kirk, back to the domestic front and deal with that. So I suspect everything else kind of goes on the back burner maybe for a little bit. We'll see what happens. Netanyahu has lost his mind, and I suspect, he's really going to try and screw shit up for Trump again. The Chinese are typically complicit, or I wouldn't say complicit, but they're typically completely fine sitting back and playing the long game because they can, kind of. I mean, they've got so many domestic problems in their country right now. I don't think they can really force the issue anyways, but they'll continue to do stupid shit like use a small Chinese, I think it was a frigate, try to ram a Indonesian, I think it was Indonesian, maybe it was Malaysian, like fishing trawler or something, and instead of ramming their target of a civilian boat, they rammed their own teammate, like the boat that was there with them. They crashed right into it. It's God. Anybody who thinks the Chinese military is a serious fighting force has at least one missing lobe of their brain. That fighting force that came out of the mountains and swept the nationalists away, and then came storming over the border in into what would become North Korea, and pushed the Americans back, that is a different army than they have now. It's of the quality of what you see marching in those displays in Europe of their military power. Similar but different. It's not, gay power military. It's just retard power military. So that's always great. It's always great to see your military rival is just a dipshit. It's always great to see. So, that's a quick, version of what's going on over in Europe at this time. I don't think there's really anything else worth noting. I mean, like, this is going to wind down so fast once it really starts to happen, because, like, the Europeans are having their own financial crisis. It's still brewing, but, like, it's there. They're all extremely nervous. Like, Mers is talking about, more and more defense spending, which, again, in my opinion, is just stimulus packages with a different name, because that's how things go. Keir Starmer is like a month or two away from, at the very least, becoming a lame duck, if not getting forced out outright. Like, that's how bad he's doing. Macron's got so many problems in his own country, it's hard to keep track of them all. The AfD, if we go back to Germany, continues to win. Meloni's got her own issues at home. For the first time, Italian bonds look more, how would I put this? More attractive to investors than German or French bonds. And that's not a good sign, because Italy's not the great stability factor in Europe. By comparison, yes, but that's not saying much. The Swiss are at 0 interest rates, and they'll probably go negative at some point. Like, there's no financial stability in all of Europe. I mean, you can get close to with Russia, but, like, Russia's economy is so small in comparison. Now, maybe the Russian people don't care. I can't speak for the Russian people. Could the Russian economy be better? Absolutely. Do they want it to be? I don't know. Who knows? I'd have to go to Russia and talk to Russians to figure that out. But seeing as I'm stuck in Kazakhstan, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Anyways, that'll be the video for today. See you tomorrow, where I'm going to talk about the Conservative Party again. I'm going to shit on them because they deserve it. Like, everybody knows how bad the rest of the parties in Canada are. There's still some who defend the Conservatives, even though they're worse than most of them, because they're pathetic and they're losers. Alright, that's the video for today. Tomorrow, till then, have a good day.